What if I told you that hidden just beyond Israel's gleaming skylines and sunlit beaches lies a place where every breath feels borrowed and quiet moments carry more fear than the sound of gunfire? This is Jenin, a refugee camp pressed between concrete walls and decades of shattered hopes. Here, mothers balance buckets of water over broken streets, and children weave between crumbling buildings and military vehicles as if danger were part of the game. In today's documentary, we're pulling back the curtain on Jenin, not to echo headlines of conflict, but to show you the human grit that endures when the world looks away. This is the story of survival where survival should never have been the only option. Let's begin. 1. Jenin Refugee Camp. Draw a line across the northern edge of the West Bank, and you'll land on Jenin, a city that's easy to miss on a map, but impossible to ignore in history. Nestled between age-old hills and pathways, once walked by traders, conquerors, and empires, Jenin has always been more crossroads than destination. Romans marched through here, Ottomans governed its streets, British soldiers posted flags on its rooftops, and today, it sits on the razor's edge of modern conflict, just minutes from the Israeli border, a gateway between farmland, coastline, and the core of the West Bank. Nearly 60,000 people now call this place home, filling neighborhoods that seem to grow denser, tighter, more strained with every passing year. But at the heart of it all lies the Jenin Refugee Camp, a place that outsiders speak of often but rarely understand. From a distance, it might seem like nothing more than a sprawl of gray rooftops and narrow streets, but take a single step inside and the air thickens. There's a rhythm here, a constant thrum of urgency and unease. Life moves fast because it must, and the deeper you go, the clearer it becomes. Jenin's story isn't about where it sits on a map. 2. Bad living conditions. Entering the Jenin refugee camp feels like stepping into another world. This was never meant to be a home. Founded in 1953 by the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, the camp was supposed to be a temporary shelter for families uprooted by the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. What began as rows of tents on borrowed ground has, over generations, hardened into a maze of concrete, tin, and timber, stacked higher and closer as need demanded. Today, nearly 25,000 people squeeze into this crowded patch of earth, making Jenin one of the most densely packed and politically charged refugee camps in the region. From a distance, it looks like an endless cluster of rooftops, but the closer you get, the more the cracks show. Overhead, power lines snake across alleys like spider webs, patched together with rope and luck. Rooftops bristle with water tanks, each one a silent reminder that clean water is precious and unpredictable. Electricity? Some nights it flows, others entire blocks sit in darkness, waiting. The narrow streets are lined with garbage, not because the people don't care, but because the system built to remove it simply can't keep up. Buildings, thrown together with whatever materials could be found, lean at uneasy angles. When storms roll in or tanks roll through, walls crumble without warning. As you walk deeper, the camp grows quieter. Shops sit shuttered, windows are cracked. The ever-present hum of drones reminds you safety is an illusion here. 3. Danger lurks every day. In Jenin, danger isn't a moment that passes. It's the backdrop of daily life. Here, conflict doesn't announce itself with warning sirens. It arrives in the middle of the night, sudden and merciless. Families fall asleep, never knowing if their door will be kicked in before dawn, if their street will become a battleground before the sun rises. Israeli forces enter the camp regularly, searching for suspects, clashing with militants, leaving behind shattered walls and shattered lives. Most incursions begin while the city sleeps. The low rumble of armored engines, the mechanical buzz of drones overhead, the pounding of boots in narrow alleys. Raids stretched through the night, sometimes bleeding into the next day, fracturing what little normalcy remains. Homes crumble under bulldozers, gunfire echoes, and in the morning, residents emerge to count the damage. According to UNRWA, 77 Palestinian refugees from Jenin have lost their lives, among them 17 children. Hundreds more have been wounded. Israeli sources confirm these operations resulted in the highest toll recorded in a single West Bank operation since OCHA began tracking. For a community already living on the edge, these numbers aren't statistics. They are daily reminders that no one is beyond reach. Beyond regional tensions escalate as Iran reportedly positioned naval mines in the Persian Gulf, threatening global trade routes like the Strait of Hormuz, which could deepen economic pressures on communities like Jenin. Nora, a mother of 3, describes how the terror reaches even the smallest hearts. She says, "Some children now fall asleep with their hands in the air. It's how they were told to surrender during the last raid. Now, it's how they dream." 4. Jenin's women at risk. In Jenin, to be a woman is to balance strength and fear every day. These women are the glue that holds households together, mothers who soothe frightened children during gunfire, daughters who fetch water through shattered streets, and grandmothers who guard family memories as walls crack around them. But their dangers aren't confined to distant checkpoints or loud explosions. They're woven into the fabric of daily life. A simple walk to the market can turn deadly if crossfire erupts. A quiet evening at home can shatter in an instant with the crash of a door forced open. Their roles as caretakers place them directly in harm's way. They patch wounds with whatever is at hand, they calm the young when sirens wail, and they rebuild what little can be rebuilt after each incursion. And too often, they pay the highest price. Take the heartbreaking loss of 16-year-old Jana Zakarn, shot while standing on her own rooftop, a place that should have offered safety. Officials called it unintentional, but for many in Jenin, watching their homes turn against them feels like an actual act of war. In Jenin, danger doesn't wait at the camp's edge. It walks into kitchens, creeps through bedrooms, and lingers in the air, leaving women to carry on despite the constant risk. 5. Poverty hinders opportunity. Imagine trying to raise a family where clean water is a privilege, not a given, where the nearest clinic is either too full, too far, or too dangerous to reach. In Jenin, poverty isn't just a lack of money. It's a chain reaction that touches every corner of life. Picture this, nearly 40% of households here don't have reliable access to clean water. After the last wave of destruction, entire parts of the camp went dark. No lights, no taps, no lifelines. What does that mean for mothers trying to keep their babies healthy, for teenage girls navigating puberty without privacy or basic hygiene? And what about school? Many girls start out with hope in their eyes, only to find doors closing as they grow older. Some are pulled out to care for siblings, others are pushed towards early marriage. Education fades, and with it, the promise of choice. The hidden crisis? Mental health. Trauma piles up, raid after raid, loss after loss, but support remains out of reach for most. UNRWA tries, but they're overwhelmed.
6. Social pressure on women. In Jenin, the battle for survival doesn't always involve bullets or drones. Sometimes it's the weight of invisible rules that presses hardest. From the moment a girl takes her first steps, the script is written. Care for others, protect the family's name, stay within the lines drawn by generations before. No law demands it, yet the message echoes everywhere. You'll see it in the way neighbors watch, in the way a mother teaches her daughter, in the way silence fills the space where dreams should be voiced. Women here do everything. When men are injured, detained, or simply can't find work, it's women who hold the pieces together. They cook, clean, earn, comfort, plan, and protect, often all at once. But here's the catch. They do it quietly, without credit, without choice, and rarely with support. Trying to step beyond these roles, that's risky. It's seen not as courage, but as defiance. The unspoken rule? Be the backbone, but don't stand tall. 7. A humane and hopeful perspective. In Jenin, where war, poverty, and loss weave through daily life, women find ways to build something stronger than fear: connection. Step into the narrow alleys and you'll see it, not in grand speeches or big projects, but in small, determined acts. A woman opens her home for a reading circle, teaching children whose schools were shelled. In a dim garage, hands stitch fabric into clothes, not for profit, but for pride. A neighbor turns her kitchen into a makeshift daycare so others can work or search for aid. There are no spotlights on these moments, no headlines, no funding grants. But they happen because in a place where so much is broken, these women refuse to let hope collapse too. They teach, they mend, they heal, not just with tools or books, but with presence. According to a recent UNRWA survey, over 60% of community-based women's groups in this region now offer informal education, mental health support, or emergency assistance. In Jenin, women don't just endure. Their resilience is a beacon of hope, mirrored by global efforts as G7 leaders on July 1, 2025, called for renewed US-Iran nuclear talks, a step that could stabilize the region and bolster support for communities like Jenin. 8. Help from the world. In a place like Jenin, international aid isn't just helpful, it's what keeps life going. The families who crowd the narrow streets of the camp depend on outside support not for comfort, but for the basics: clean water, medicine, classrooms where children can cling to a shred of normalcy. Organizations like UNRWA, the World Health Organization, and independent NGOs work in the shadows of conflict, bringing what relief they can. Their work is quiet, steady, and absolutely essential. UNRWA, for example, runs a health clinic and 4 basic schools inside the camp. These aren't just buildings, they're pillars holding up what's left of daily life. The clinic provides vaccinations, prenatal care, and emergency treatment when the violence comes too close. The schools offer children more than lessons. They offer a place where, even for a few hours, the world feels less broken. When homes are torn apart by raids, European Union funding helps UNRWA deliver emergency cash so families can patch a roof, replace a door, or buy what's needed to get through the night. The agency also sets up damage reporting posts, helping residents record destruction and coordinate repairs, especially to critical systems like water and sewage networks that are routinely shattered in military operations. But access is fragile. Each incursion can cut aid workers off. Each checkpoint can delay help that is already stretched too thin. European officials have urged Israel to ensure humanitarian workers can do their jobs. Political pressure has grown, but so has the demand for services on the ground. However, hopes for regional stability are strained as U.S. President Trump on July 2, 2025, rejected negotiations with Iran post-ceasefire, potentially limiting diplomatic efforts that could ease pressures on humanitarian operations in places like Jenin. But yet, through it all, the aid workers, most of them Jenin residents themselves, keep going. They return to shattered clinics, reopen battered classrooms, and hand out medicine. 9. Jenin isn't alone. Jenin may be one of the loudest warnings. Look just beyond the northern West Bank and you'll see the same patterns echoing through other places the world rarely stops to notice. In Balata camp near Nablus, families crowd into crumbling buildings, drinking water from unreliable pipes, listening for the next round of gunfire that might tear through the night. Mothers in Shuafat, on the edge of East Jerusalem, raise their children in the shadows of watchtowers and concrete walls, where the garbage trucks can't always get through and basic services come second to security barriers. Further still, in places like Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, Rohingya women navigate the same tightrope of displacement, poverty, and invisibility. What makes Jenin stand out isn't the depth of its suffering, because that heartbreakingly is shared, but the depth of its resilience. So no, Jenin isn't alone, and that's exactly why the world should pay attention. In the United States, 75% of the public fears Iran may retaliate for recent U.S. strikes on its nuclear facilities, a concern that underscores the global stakes of Middle East tensions which ripple into vulnerable communities like Jenin.